As the United Kingdom continues to report record number of COVID cases, the Prime Minister stressed the need to exercise caution and booster doses if the country does not want to be in lockdown on Christmas. For now, the government has refrained from announcing any new measures, though Johnson warned that he will not hesitate to impose lockdown if the situation calls for it.
We agreed that we should keep the data from now on under constant review, keep following it hour by hour. And unfortunately, I must say to people, we will have to reserve the possibility of taking further action to protect the public and to protect public health, to protect our NHS. And we won't hesitate to take that action. But in the meantime, what I would say to everybody is please exercise caution as you go about your lives. Please think of the guidance and think of protecting yourself and your loved ones. And please get a booster. Please get a vaccination.
These comments come after the Prime Minister held a cabinet meeting to discuss new curbs, something his own party is not in favour of. Just last week, nearly 100 of his own MPs rebelled against the tougher measures to stop the Omicron spread. This means, for now, the government has decided not to limit social interactions over Christmas, which is just days away, despite the government's own scientific advisors urging for it. Now, after a 2-hour meeting, Johnson failed to provide any clarity on the government's action plan, saying that they were looking at all kinds of things to keep the surge under control and that it ruled nothing out. Britain reported over 91,000 cases on Monday, with the highest number of infections in London. Daily case records have been repeatedly broken over the last week as the country struggles to contain Omicron. The government had earlier this month resorted to implementing its Plan B, mandatory masks, working from home if possible, COVID passes for large events to try and stem the surge. It has also set the highly ambitious goal of offering booster vaccines to all adults by the end of the month. But in contrast to its European neighbours, there has been no new guideline. The Mayor of London also announced that it was cancelling a major New Year celebration event, which was to be held at Trafalgar Square. And for more on this, our correspondent, Ollie Barrett, is joining us live from London. Thanks for being with us, Ollie. Now, Britain has reported over 90,000 cases on Monday. This is the highest number of infections in London, where the hospitalization rates are climbing. Now, what is the situation on the ground and just how well prepared is the health system?
It's very hard to answer that question without knowing the exact link between cases and hospitalizations and fatalities with regards to the Omicron variant and also the severity of the Omicron variant. And clearly more data on those issues is coming in all of the time. And indeed, London is being used as something of a test case for the rest of the country, given that infections are moving ahead here of what we're seeing in other parts of the United Kingdom. So government officials are very closely tracking what is happening in London so that they can try and get a sense about exactly what the impact of Omicron is going to be nationwide, and therefore whether indeed health services are going to be able to cope. There are early indications that that link between cases and hospitalizations with regards to Omicron may well be even weaker than we've seen at previous points of the pandemic with other strains, and there is that wall of protection in place from booster vaccines as well. But as I say, there is not yet enough data for government ministers to be completely confident that the health service is going to be okay. At the same time, at this point, they are not completely confident in the other direction as well. So no further restrictions for now to protect the health service, but very much not being ruled out either before Christmas or after Christmas, although time's certainly running out to implement new restrictions before Christmas comes around. So it is considered much more likely at this stage that if the UK government does decide that it does need some further measures in place to slow the spread of Omicron, that those might come into play around the 28th or 29th of December.
Right, Ollie. So as you said, Boris Johnson ruling out extended virus curbs over Christmas, despite the pressure from his own MPs and others. Now, how is this decision being taken by the people in the UK? And what are the experts saying on how this will impact the already worsening situation?
Well, to be clear, Boris Johnson is not ruling out more restrictions before Christmas. He's ruling out making that decision immediately. He is saying he retains the ability to move more quickly if needed. It's just simply that time is running out, really, before Christmas, if he is going to do something before the 25th. Partly because people are already making plans and already moving around the country, but partly also because of the political situation that he finds himself in. He's promised that if any further restrictions are going to be brought in to deal with the spread of Omicron, that Parliament would be recalled to vote on those restrictions. And again, the time really is running out to get MPs back to Westminster if they are going to have to vote on something to be in place before Christmas. So it does look more likely that restrictions, if they were to be imposed, would come after the Christmas period. In terms of the mood on the ground, the polling very much suggests, in a different way than we have seen in previous peaks of the pandemic, that this time around the British public is anti the idea of further lockdowns, of much stricter measures to deal with Omicron, and that will certainly be playing into Boris Johnson's decision-making process at the moment as well. We know that he and his government, this government in particular, really do watch the polling very closely indeed. And as I say, during previous rounds of the pandemic, previous waves, we have actually seen the polling suggesting that the British people have been very much in favour of quite tough restrictions, often tougher than those that have actually been imposed by the government. That is not the case this time around. Add that to the political situation around Boris Johnson, those MPs in his own party who simply don't want to see any more measures imposed, the fact that there's all this chatter about leadership challenges for Boris Johnson, and you have a cabinet as well that is sceptical at the moment about the need for further restrictions, saying they want to see more data. So add all of that together, and as I say, it does look more likely that if any restrictions were to be required, that they would come after Christmas. But even those aren't guaranteed at this point yet. And indeed, as I say, some cabinet ministers feel there have been some signs in the data over the last 24 or 48 hours that perhaps actually further measures won't be required at all. But it is a major gamble from the government.
Right, Ollie, and just lastly, we saw some pictures that emerged from number 10 Downing Street, and with some of the other controversies and scandals surrounding the UK Prime Minister, what impact has this had on Boris Johnson's ratings?
His ratings are not in a good place at the moment at all. His personal ratings have been falling quite rapidly in recent weeks, but also the national poll ratings for his Conservative Party. Consistently now, the Conservatives lag behind the opposition Labour Party, and it does appear that these scandals, particularly about parties or gatherings in and around Downing Street last year, are very much feeding into all of that. Boris Johnson continues to insist that he didn't break any rules. These parties, these gatherings, whatever they were, are being investigated. We await the results of that apparently independent investigation. But this feeds in as well to the calculation about further restrictions or otherwise for the UK economy. There's real concern about what it will do to public compliance if people feel that they're being asked to follow rules that perhaps MPs, perhaps the Prime Minister, perhaps aides of Boris Johnson in and around Downing Street, it's claimed may not have been following themselves over the course of the last 12 months or so.
Arnie, thank you very much for bringing us all the latest from the UK.
WION, now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.